Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has outlined programs for the conduct of the postponed elections, starting with the presidential and National Assembly elections on Saturday, the 23rd of February. And following consultations with political parties, the electoral body approves the resumption of campaigns by parties and candidates expected to end by midnight of Thursday. The development, many say, has put to rest debates on issues of campaigns with the postponed elections, given that politics is a game of numbers and politicians will not take chances with space in wooing the more than 84 million voters. There are, however, other concerns and matters, such as sustaining the interest of the electorate in voting, and tackling the issues of hate speech and fake news that threaten national cohesion. And then, how ready is INEC this time for the elections? Now, these and other issues will be raised tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. But first, let's get to see this report by Dele Atumbi.
Let's encourage INEC. Let's support INEC. The end product is free, credible elections.
What should automatically happen to campaigns by political parties and candidates after the shift of an election in line with Section 99, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act?
The provisions of Section 99 of the Electoral Act is very clear. Shall within 90 days and 24 hours before, that is to say, if INEC decide to shift the time allotted for the said election, campaigns will only stop 24 hours before the next date fixed for that election.
Political activity, in my opinion, reading and giving a clear and unambiguous literal interpretation of the provision of Section 99 can resume their campaign.
Observers say what is important is the unity of the country, with citizens being given the opportunity to perform their civic responsibility. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi.
Yes, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program Njuma Muhammad is a presidential candidate, Movement for the Restoration and Defense of Democracy. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Let me also welcome Dr. Leonard Nzewa. He's National Secretary, African Action Congress. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, too.
We're also joined by Aliu Omar, a senior advocate of Nigeria and former Attorney General of Kano State. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let me also welcome tonight Ahmed Raji, also a senior advocate and a former resident electoral commissioner with INEC. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Okay, as we always do, we acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussions in the studio. The platforms will be on your screen. We advise you to take advantage of those platforms and be part of this program. However, for those phoning in tonight, the same thing we say every Tuesday. When your call gets through, do us a favor, reduce the volume. Turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through to the studio, you'll see your name appear on screen. Once that happens, it means that you are live direct to the studio. Just go right ahead with a question or comment. Don't bother too much about the greetings. You probably wouldn't have much time to do that. And of course, also bear in mind that sometimes the lines can be erratic. So just go straight to the point. Don't bother about the greetings. Make your comment, ask a question, and whatever issues you raise, our guests will be willing to respond to them. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Matters arising from the polls that were put off up until the 23rd, which is Saturday. So let's begin to look at some of those issues that people would have been raising ever since that Saturday morning that INEC announced the postponement. This time around, you're a presidential candidate. How ready are you?
Well, fully ready, but in my own case, in my particular case, I double as my party's national chairman.
Right. So how set is the party?
Yes, as far as the presidential ticket is concerned, the long ago, we came together as the parties NWC and NEC to actually step down eventually for the incumbent president, which was formally communicated to INEC and including the president himself. But I haven't said that we're still very much involved in mobilizing, because what we're doing now is to reawaken, the seeming weakened morale of our supporters to vote, to come out and exercise their franchise, their civic responsibilities, and vote for the preferred candidate of the party at presidential level.
All right, let's come to Dr. Leonard Nzewa, who's National Secretary, African Action Congress. How set are you? You heard the postponement. You must have expressed concern, like so many other interested parties and the general public, the voting public. So what have you put in place within this 1 week window?
We were really shocked when we got the news that the election had been postponed. But we also need to appreciate the effort of INEC. Our campaign footprint has been very massive. Even before the announcement was done, we've been able to cover about 36 states across the Federation. Of course, we know we have a lot of massive presence in the social media. Equally on ground, we also do that. So we were really prepared for the election. We were set to go for it until we heard about the announcement. For Nigerians, I asked them to be calm, to be patient. The reasons that have been given by INEC, we've run through it, we've studied it. It's an organization. We need to move ahead. We are set for the election come Saturday.
Okay, so we'll come back to you with all the issues, but let's go to the senior advocate of Nigeria and former Attorney General of Kano State, Aliyu Umar. And, well, at the time the announcement was made, what was the first thing that struck you? The implications of that postponement at that period and the rescheduling?
Well, I look at it from the legal
Yes.
perspective.
Yes.
And then I ask the question whether INEC had the necessary powers to postpone an election, either in any part of the country or generally as it did. And that takes me to the provisions of the Constitution and also the Electoral Act. But at the time the announcement was made, no reason was given. So the powers of INEC to postpone an election is for a cogent and verifiable reasons. And when the INEC chairman gave a press conference at 2 o'clock and stated his reasons, I was of the opinion that they were justified and they have the powers, because the reasons he gave was logistics and lack of transportation of essential materials. For instance, I was in Kano at that time. I cannot imagine, for instance, that in the North Central Senatorial District, where they don't have haze and weather problems, will be casting their votes, whereas people in Kano are not. It will bring a lot of chaos, and that may lead to unnecessary breach of the peace. So the powers are there, conditional, that they have to be cogent and verifiable. And then I ask myself, who will verify those cogent reasons? The Act or the Constitution did not state who is supposed to undertake that duty. So I said to myself, it must be INEC and maybe stakeholders. If you are going to take it wider, it will be what will a reasonable man do. A reasonable man in Kano will never, I believe, or a reasonable man in southwest or southeast or south will never accept a situation whereby one part of the country is a conduct of the election, casting their votes, and they are not. And for that reason, I thought that the reasons are cogent. What my friends here, the politician will say, I don't know, and I don't know with his experience, the former REC, maybe we'll have a different thing. But these are the things, and I'm so happy that the two gentlemen have started, and it has been so calming the situation. We should never in this country try to ascribe ulterior motive, nefarious ulterior motive to anything done, whether until that is obvious. We should be calm and reason and accept something. But like the call that was being made by Nigerians, both elites and the common man, saying that INEC should be prepared to do it, and I hope they will be ready on Saturday, that there will be no postponement again.
All right. Well, there are other issues which we'll take up, other legal issues we'll take up. But let's go to a former resident electoral commissioner with INEC and also a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ahmed Raji. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thought was, okay, man proposes, but God Almighty disposes. Within me, I was convinced that INEC did not set out to fail. But unfortunately, they had challenges. But my disappointment was the timing of the announcement. Although it's open-ended in the law did not provide or has not provided how late the postponement should be announced.
Okay, that's one point.
But and for election that is supposed to commence by 8 a.m. and then you're announcing postponement by 2:30 a.m. It leaves much to be desired. And I agree with Mr. President when he said he was thoroughly disappointed. It was when he woke up for his morning prayers that he got to know that election will not be taking place. I think that is an aspect INEC didn't handle very well. They ought to have known at least 24 hours before Saturday that, A, this thing will not fly. And then they should have run it with all the key stakeholders, and then the effect will be less. There is no point pretending that every election involves money. A lot of expenses, a lot of activities have gone on. And most of these politicians, they are just crying right now as we are. But at the end of the day, who will bear the brunt? It's the system. Because they're going to repeat the same thing in the next exercise, which they are going to pass the burden to the society. The point I'm trying to make is, yes, INEC, like Alhaji Aruma just rightly pointed out, that they have the powers under the law. But is there a window? Shouldn't Nigerians have a legitimate expectation that after a particular threshold, there can be postponement? In 2011, there was a postponement, but it was a week or two before the postponement. 2015. It was a week or two before the election, and they announced to the world. So I believe Section 26 should be amended in such a way that, yes, INEC has powers to postpone, but this power has a window of 72 hours. That after 72 hours, you can no longer postpone. Just like parties can no longer submit candidates after a particular threshold. Yes. Why would you wake up and just tell the people early in the morning when most of them are still asleep, and then they wake up ready to go to the polling unit and they say, oh, you can't vote again? It would look like you are still dreaming. I believe the law should be amended.
So you think in that aspect, they probably did not envisage that there could be logistics problems right, to the 11th hour.
no matter the logistic problems here, non-arrival of materials, non-distribution of materials, this they ought to have known that the materials have not arrived. All right. But be that as it may, we have to take it up and follow them, okay, and assist them to succeed.
All right. Perhaps we'll return to you later on. But let me also put that question to you. You think that I've been envisaged that there could be this kind of situation? I mean talking about the timing. You also have the opinion that there ought to be a window within which, if you've not postponed, then.
No, I do not think there should be a window. For this reason, I listened to the conference by the INEC chairman. One of the things he said that they were in the airport up to the wee hours of that Saturday morning, hoping to get this logistics up to the states where there were this problem of essential materials. What happens is that if you start limiting and confining an organization that deals with a human being, that you must do this within these hours, you must do this within these days, then you are not giving it discretionary power enough. Like the example I gave. If, for instance, I don't know, he didn't say the state that were affected, but if Kano was affected by, say, no delivery of the ballot papers, and that election is not cancelled, the people will never reason with INEC. So what we will hope to do is that INEC should be matured enough to think of these things, but anything to limit them in terms of days, in terms of hours, in terms of weeks, will really put INEC in a situation whereby there will be a lot of litigation, even though it's going to be a job for all of us. But honestly, for the sake of this country, we must, if for instance they have said that, well, my people were tired, that cannot be a cogent or verifiable reasons. But when they say, logistically we could not deliver some of the essential materials, even though we were at the airports, up to the wee hours of the morning, and then if there had been a limit, it means that no matter what happened, other sections of the country will be voting and others will not be voting. And then, of course, you have politicians in Nigeria that say, no, it's because of somebody is being favored to rig the election. You know, all kind of things that will come. I am more concerned with the peace and non-violence of the election. It's more important to me than these things. But at the same time, I agree that INEC must be up and running. At this time, almost everybody in this country knows that northeast, northwest will be having the problem of the weather. And even when they take these materials to the states, they take them and deposit them in the central bank. Yeah. They trust the central bank. Why not during those windows where these states have these problems, they should have taken it? Why wait until they are distributing to all other states that they will take to these problem states?
All right. Well, just to put on record that in putting this program together, we invited the Independent National Electoral Commission to be part of it. So we do hope that before we round off this discussion, we'll be joined by a representative of INEC. Hopefully, that would happen before. Well, let's come now to the politicians and so on. The question has been asked on so many platforms to say, do you see this 1 week as an added advantage or a disadvantage in terms of now the logistics of the parties? INEC has talked about its own logistics. What about the logistics of the parties?
Equally, it's a burden on all the political parties and also the candidates. It's not been an easy thing because we basically were winding up the whole campaign program thinking that it would be Saturday. But when you have additional few days coming into it, becomes very, very enormous for every person. And the reason is this. When you set out on the campaign of this nature, you have a clearly mapped out program in terms of the cost element, in terms of the human element, in terms of the logistic element in terms of all the technical inputs you put into it. And you are virtually exhausting everything at that time, and this time this one comes out again. Even when the announcement was done, it was not clear whether the political parties will have a window to also start to also go back and begin to campaign again. It was just about yesterday that this came up, that they have an opportunity to go out. So essentially, we are back on the field. Additional cost burden is on us, but the most important thing we are very comfortable with is that the electorates are very patient. So in a situation where you think you'll be spending like 2 naira or 5 naira or that, they'll appreciate that. Look, this is not going to be money as it used to be. Let's just talk to you. Let us engage with you, that these are the situations we have on ground. So it's also a burden on us, but we just have to take it like that for the sake of Nigeria.
Do you also see an advantage in having more time to reach out to the electorate?
Yes, every window is more time to engage the people.
So there's a gain in that.
There is a gain.
Yes. Well, more time, though, it is not the desirable type of time, because the commitment was so much that for me, sitting atop the management of a political party, on Thursday I cited some kind of relief that, thank God, we have run and closed our campaign successfully. So no more issue of campaign. We're satisfied that we've made enough appeal, to the electorates on what to do and how to vote for our candidates. But then this ledger came. You see, it was quite disappointing and shocking, to say the least. The leadership, this current leadership of INEC, happens to be one leadership I personally had so much confidence in, to the extent that I recall when the former president in this country made a sweeping criticism of INEC, I went on air, to fault him. But you see, our expectation was built on the, recurring reassurances given by Professor Yakubu. From the very beginning of the commencement of the electoral timetable, he never erred. And there was it was like a perfect kind of movement to the very last, period, last lap. And he was asked consistently whether on the readiness of the commission. He was always answering in the affirmative. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready. And suddenly, this ledger came at 2 a.m. like a coup d'etat, unfortunately. Thank God it is not. But then, the reasons he gave during this the stakeholder meeting, for me, are not tenable. They are just flimsy. Some of these things happened even days before his decision not to hold the elections. So, and all this while he was giving reassurances about conducting these elections, we believe he was speaking from the strength of information provided by his subordinates. We do not expect him, as the general manager of the electoral system, to begin to double his duties as the fellow in charge of logistics, in charge of personnel, in charge of that. No, we expect him to rely on the activities of his subordinates. And consistently, I believe, they fed him with this reassuring points that, like, look, we are ready, we are ready, we are ready. And suddenly, he called off the elections. When he called it off, the thing is, we are just lucky that none of the candidates, particularly presidential candidates, none of the candidates is coming up with a kind of, with a statement that this election was called off to deny him the victory. Okay. And that is why we are having at least a tension-free atmosphere as it is today. But honestly speaking, it is regrettable. And I said it even at the stakeholder meeting, that all the excuses he gave borders on internal sabotage. And until we are able to get down to whose fault was it? Was it on the basis of incompetence? Was it on the basis of dishonesty? We will not make progress. But we'll do all that after the elections. We have an election to contest.
Right, this other aspect I want to go to. Some might say it's just merely academic because, as at yesterday afternoon, and it came out to clarify the situation. But initially, I would want, you know, some believed that the lawyers were already getting set to interpret whether or not parties can go ahead and campaign, whether or not the Electoral Act envisaged a postponement and the stoppage of campaigns and adverts 24 hours before. Well, like I said, it was clarified just 2 o'clock yesterday. Yeah. But before then, it was on edge. So let's, for the purposes of what might, even though Nigerians say this should be the last time, you know, you have a postponement of this nature. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, by virtue of Section 26, postponement is contemplated, is in fact, it's nothing new under the Electoral Act. And like I said, you have to leave room for natural disasters, even under the Constitution. If the country is at war, election will have to be postponed. But the question is, where election is postponed and campaigns have been going on, does it mean it will have to stop and they can no longer campaign simply because the election has been postponed? The wordings of Section 99 is to the effect that campaign will stop 24 hours before the polling day.
All right.
And since polling day has not come, it will be interfering with the right of the parties and the candidates if you stop them from campaigning. Right. For example, what has happened now is, even, I'm glad like Danjuma has made a point that, look, we are going to look into this issue of INEC, whether it's an internal sabotage or what have you. That one can even be a campaign issue. All the major parties now can come out and tell Nigerians that, look, when we form government, we are going to reform INEC. When we form government, based on this nasty experience, because, I mean, we have to give it to Mr. President. He's a statesman. For him to come out and he says after the elections, INEC has some things to explain, not caring whether they will favor him or not favor him. He said it, meaning that the reform of INEC is now on the burner. So why will you stop campaign?
All right. Okay. We'll return to this, but we have a caller on the line if you're still there. Bashir from Kanu calling in. Hello, Bashir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hello.
Good evening, Bashir. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, go on.
Hello.
Yes, Bashir.
Yeah, hello. I can't hear you very well. Hello.
We can hear you, and your name is on screen. So go ahead.
Yeah, my question. Yeah, my question is going to our father, Alhaji Umar. Actually, we Northerners here, we pray and we pray. Still, we are praying, and I want Baba Umar to beg our leaders to keep on praying, not because of all this that is happening, because what we have now in the north is more than the even election. We are seeing a lot of things happening in the north, Maiduguri, Yobe, and all this in all these days. But what we want is that the prayer from our leaders. And I wish all our people for the election. And I want our father, Baba Umar, to pray for us very hard and all with them with a good look. I thank him. I've seen him on the screen.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, Bashir is calling for prayers, but while the prayers are going on, the very salient issues about running an election are still the main issues here. And again, the same question we put on. We're asking the same thing. So it ought to have been clear to even those who are not lawyers, the lawyers always love to refer to as not learned.
Yeah.
Not learned in law.
Okay. Well,
Not like Mr. Stover is learned in journalism.
Very good.
all right. Well, those not learned in law, it ought to have been so clear that, I mean, since it was no longer 24 hours to the election, campaigns could still go on. But it had to take another meeting for that to be clarified, although some of the parties had stated all along that they were going to go straight onto the field and conduct their campaigns.
And I agree with what the proposition made by Alhaji Ahmed Raji. And in fact, in the whole of this postponement issue, it was that decision, that initial decision by INEC, which is vexing. Because like he said, this is a constitutional provision and an electoral act provision that you can only stop campaigning when for voters 24 hours to the time of the election.
Yeah.
How can you now ask them to stop campaigning 7 days, 1 week to the election? It shows that you just want to show you have power. Since I have the power to postpone, then I'm postponing everything connected with the election. But the INEC must realize that whatever power they have are donated and provided by the accent law and the constitution. And they should never have, that was overheating the polity. It was an opportunity for everybody. Maybe people who had gone to some states and maybe the campaign, the review is that it is bad. It is an opportunity for them to go back. But to stop them, when you have stopped the election, I mean, it's bad. It is, I won't call it an abuse of power, but it is to show raw power. I can do this and nothing is going to happen. I'm glad that sober reasons had prevailed and he was convinced to do that. I hope next time when they are taking a decision, they should be able to look at their powers and their limits and so on. When Raju was the electoral commissioner in Kano, I mean, we are going off and down and giving him a lot of things, but he remained calm. And whatever he did was within his powers. I'm not praising him because he is here, but simply because, maybe because of his background, that's why he did it.
Been learned.
And by the way, we say that lawyers are learning because we are not afraid to ask questions. We are not afraid to say, we don't know. Please tell us how it is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's go back to the phones now. We have calling in from Warri Osaz. Hello. Hello. Is Osaz still on the line?
Hello.
Hello, go right ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Osaz, we're waiting to hear from you. Well, let me just restate this. You know, we do this so many times over and over again. Once your name appears, just go right ahead. I assume that whoever is calling on this program is watching on a TV screen and they can see their own names written on the screen. So once you see your name, it means you are through. You just go right ahead and make your contribution. So I'll repeat that again. Once your name appears on the screen, it means that your call is through to the studio. So just go right ahead and make your contribution. All right. Now let's come back to the other side of the story. And that now is to talk about the logistics of the electorate. As you well know, so many people had moved around hoping to cast their ballot in places they were registered. And it caught so many off guard. And they had to deal with deciding whether to spend the whole week where they had gone to or to come back and travel back and forth in order to exercise their franchise. The issue here is, do you think this could or might have led to some form of apathy, where some would say, look, I don't think I'm up to doing this again, going this journey, undertaking this journey again. How do you think this would have affected the voter, potential voter?
I don't think that there's going to be significant apathy by the electorate. The expectation this time is very high. We can't put a finger to it, but there is this desire on the part of Nigerians to get themselves involved in trying to vote for the president they want, or whoever that will rule this country. And that will show you the huge number of people that came out, to get themselves captured and for them to get their PVC. In just a space of how many months? So additional 14 million new voters were registered. And so we're having about 84 million, over 84 million voters. So in clear terms, I don't see the postponement impacting negatively on the voters voting. People that have traveled, yes, because I know a couple of people that traveled back and they said they will still go back to go and vote. That they don't care about it, they'll go back and vote. That this time, something has got to happen.
Okay, well, the traveling, perhaps the distance might have something to do with it.
I think so.
I'm looking, for instance, at someone who had to travel from, say, from Lagos to Garkina.
Okay.
And back.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes, well, yeah, said his own, but the truth of the matter is that it will certainly not record the kind of turnout that it ought to have recorded on Saturday if it had held. Because there are people, yes, with commitment, people want, yes, the enthusiasm is there, wanting to elect the president they want and all that. But the truth still remains, the cost from the political parties. Today alone in my office, we're inundated with calls and demands for additional payment for agents, party agents that are supposed to be at the polling booths. That's from our own standpoint. Now, the ordinary electorate, there are people who paid by air. It's not as if they can afford the air transit, but because where they live or where they come from, it's we know the problem of security in Nigeria, traveling by road and all that. People travel from here to Yola to Maiduguri, and it's not really as if they can easily afford the airfare. But because of the significance of wanting to go home to vote, they had to kind of bring money, get money, and travel to Maiduguri, and now they are back. And you want to tell me they will go through that sacrifice again of wanting? I mean, some of them don't even have enough time to bank this money, to make up what it takes to buy this airfare. So the truth of the matter is that whether we like it or not, it is going to impact on the turnout, and is certainly that is on the downside.
All right. Well, while people might worry about the costs in terms of Naira and Kobo, do you envisage that there is any dent whatsoever arising from the postponement? You envisage that there could be any dent to the perception of credibility of the whole process?
On the contrary, if the election had not been postponed, and based on my reading of what the chairman of INEC presented to the public, it would have been disastrous if the election had gone ahead. For example, most sensitive materials had not arrived in various state capitals. And most of the state capitals, you travel for another 4 hours to take them to the local government headquarters. Then before you now carry them from local government headquarters to the various wards, then to the polling units. By the time you accomplish that, maybe it will be 12 midnight or Saturday, when will the election be? This will have raised serious issues. I do not think it, it puts a question mark, a big one, on our ability to organize ourselves as a people, and it ridicules us a bit before the international community, because even though Section 26 talks of postponement, it's talking of natural disasters. It's not talking of human disasters. What we witnessed last Saturday is what I would call monumental human disaster, not contemplated by the Section 26, but we have to extend it for whatever it is worth.
All right.
So if we had gone on, it would have been very disastrous, and it will have dampened the morale of Nigerians. And just like Alhaji Ali Umar said, that if voting is taking place in Jos, and the Kanawas are told that you can't vote here, but voting is taking place in Jos, it's like, what have we done in Kano? Before you will explain to them that, oh, it is due to bad weather, is it not the same weather Kano and Jos? Exactly. How can plane land in Kaduna, cannot land in Jos? They are voting in Jos, they are voting in Kukawa, but they are not voting in Kano? It will raise serious problems. And we pray that God Almighty will guide INEC and that the problem will not be repeated. So, on the balance, what they have done would have saved our image. If they had gone on, the dent will have been more.
Okay. From Niger State, we have Zachary calling in. Hello, Zachary. Zachary, are you there?
A very good evening to you all.
Okay, good evening.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead, go ahead. Just go
Good evening
ahead.
to you all.
Good evening, go ahead.
I'm there and I'm with you. Good evening to you all.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good. That's a very wonderful program, quite interesting.
Is that all, Zachary?
My contribution goes like this. It is clear that this postponement will be of much use. The people that will have the advantage of it are...
All right. You know, I said this at the start of this program, that you probably will not have much time. And Zachary called in there. His call was through to the studio. He spent a lot of time worrying about greetings. And unfortunately, the line went off. So again, let me repeat this appeal to all those who are phoning in. You don't have much time. TV time is expensive. So as soon as your call gets through and your name appears on the screen, don't bother. I mean, the people in the studio know that this is an important program to you. So don't bother about the greetings or insist that they have to respond before you make your contribution. Just go straight to the point. We will all appreciate that. And it will give us some time to deal with so many of the issues that we have here. All right.
This
so
call has been postponed.
I like that. Postponed. All right. So again, looking at it, you think that it was, you know, more an advantage? It was better to have postponed? Or you also the belief that going ahead could have done more damage than the postponement?
I think I agree with what Raji said. And that was the point I tried to make at the beginning,
right,
answering your first question. My own worry is the way my good friends here will look at anything as being partisan and a scheme to weed some people out. If it had gone on, it would have generated a lot of problem. There would have been a lot of fake news on the social media. And before you know it, there would be a lot of serious violence in this country. We worry about observers. Yes, I think the people who had the right to say our elections was fair, free, and credible are Nigerians. If For instance, you have to, I mean, can you, maybe people will recall the Al Gore and what is the other person? Or even the recent one between Hillary Clinton and President Trump. She had more votes, about 3 million or 5 million, they say, over and above his own. And because the Americans are satisfied that it is electoral college that wins the presidency, they are satisfied. As a Nigerian, I still cannot pardon how somebody with those kind of votes, and who had, for instance, in our own situation, got the 2 thirds, or has at least 1 third of the states, and has the highest number of votes, is not declared, and she had to accept something. But Americans believe that that was fair, credible, and free. And we didn't compare our own situation and say that Americans, what you did was bad. It was not fair. It is not credible. How can you do this? So everybody has his own system. It's good for observers to come and see how we are doing. What their value is to help us assess where we went wrong, like this postponement, like Raji said, at the wee hours of the morning. But they should understand that unlike in America, our people will come out with all kinds of weapons. And before you know it, we start killing one another. And then the elections would never have been accepted by the political parties. By the political parties. And there are situations, even when the elections are going on, because of violence, like he said, INEC can be able to postpone the election. So, I mean, it shows courage. It shows independence for INEC to say, if I go ahead with this election, I am going to do damage to Nigerians and the Nigerian system. But this is not an encouragement for me to say that they should continue in this bend.
Okay. Right. Calling in from Warri is Frederick. Hello, Frederick. Go right ahead. Okay. Frederick can't come on. Yes, but even as the reasons have been given, right up till now, there are scores of conspiracy theories flying around in the country, in social media, and even in mainstream media. There are all kinds of conspiracies. The real reason why the elections were postponed, the unseen hands, even when the chairman of INEC stated categorically, in no unmistakable terms, that it had nothing to do with security threats, it had nothing to do with any political arm twisting, but entirely on their own. Is this the kind of, electorate, voting public that we should ordinarily have? The skepticism, how has this all played out?
You know, I did point out initially that the expectation is very high. I have never seen a situation in this country where you have very large number of people desiring intensely to express their will through the ballot box. It's not been part of our history, but now we're getting to that stage. I got the initial shock because with my interaction with international observers initially, I knew definitely the election was going to be postponed. And so when Professor Mohamud came out with it, he is a die-hard optimist. I don't know the level of interaction most of you have had with him. He still believed the election would go on despite all that happened. You look at the situation in Aba, where electoral materials were reached down. You look at in Oka, where 4,600 PVCs were all reached down, and the whole buildings of INEC reached down. You looked in Kwaram in Plateau State, where the whole buildings was reached down and all that. And so he had to go back to the ICT team in INEC now advised him that it's going to take about 6 to 7 days for them to reconfigure these PVCs and get them working back online. So I'm not holding brief for him, but those are some of the it's not human factor this time, in this case, the way we look at it. Those are some of the reasons that played that and why he said the election has to be postponed. But regarding Nigerians, if it is this kind of electorate that is always very skeptical, Nigerians are like that. Nigerians are like that. And that's the reason is because they want to see and they want to believe. What has played out previously is not what is going to play out. So for this time for them, they really want to seek out, are we going to have the man that will be our president genuinely through a free, fair, and credible election? So that's exactly what is playing out.
Okay, let's try the phones one more time. And from Maiduguri, this time Maiduguri, we have Abba calling in. Abba from Maiduguri, go right ahead. No, I think we'll probably just go right ahead and see how much we can take in here before we try the phones again. But let me come to you, and still in the same vein. Nigerians are skeptical people, and definitely, even as we speak, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories. But again, from the point of view of the politicians themselves, there have been trading of words. Each one, I mean, so many politicians raising questions and concerns about what might have led to some sharp practices in the system had the elections gone ahead. So what have we taken from all of this?
Like my colleague said, and like Alhaji Raji mentioned earlier on, it is the nature. We see advantage in disadvantages. He said earlier on that the issue of INEC reform is a political campaign issue, which is true. So all what parties try to do, some of these, particularly the major contenders, try to do is to fault one another and see if they can score political points by doing that. But having said that, it is still not, it doesn't really address the issue on ground. Social media it gives this opportunity to people to exercise so much authority without responsibilities. So, and one can hardly control that. But talking realistically, it is a period that calls for responsibility, not only on the part of the authority, but equally on the part of the politicians. We are just coming out of the odium of 12 June election, which was finally settled by this administration. And I will not want Nigerian political elites and even the electoral umpire to do anything that will send us into yet another kind of situation. But then we must give credit to one thing I have observed. This is the 4th general elections I will be involved in as an executive of a registered political party, the 4th. And I want to say that I have noticed beyond reasonable doubt that INEC is truly independent this time around. The president consistently said that he has given INEC everything it needs or requested to succeed. And INEC too, that is through the leadership, Professor Mahmoud, has consistently confirmed this before Nigerians. So I want to say that there is the issue of unseen hands does not really arise here practically. But when politicians want to take advantage of situation to score political point, I mean, it's okay.
All right.
Yes. There was one point about the negative impact of the election due to postponement. A lot of people, including the parties, the major parties, kept on complaining about people moving from one place to another. And I said to myself, in Kano, how many registered voters are there? How many of us are away? Say in Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and so on. What percentage? So, how can the people who are less than 0.01% affect all the population that are resident in Kano, doing their trading, farming? I mean, it will be a disappointment for those people to say I participated. That's why I think one of the reforms that ought to be done is that if you move to Abuja and you are a resident there, you are doing your work, it shouldn't take you long to be able to switch your registration from Kano to Abuja.
All right. Yes. And so it's on that note, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will put the question to our guests. Is INEC overburdened? Is the whole process cumbersome? What about the transfer of, is that also something that should be looked at? And they talk about reforms, the Independent National Electoral Commission. That's where we'll be going after this break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Right, tonight, matters arising from the postponed elections. Now, let's bring this up. After the chairman of INEC gave his press briefing, during the question and answer session, matters arising, the issue of the huge load that INEC is carrying came up. Do you think INEC is overburdened?
Yes, to some extent, because of the kind of system we operate in Nigeria. There was this committee report, the Waste Committee report, which recommended the unbundling of INEC and all that. But again, if you look at it, the truth of the matter is It is not really the size of an organization that matters, but the efficiency you put into this organization. You can unbundle INEC and have 3 or 5 components into 3 or 5 different components with different responsibilities. If you do not inject efficiency into this, if they do not operate as very efficient system, the same thing will happen. What happened? What led us to this ugly situation? Because I still believe it's terrible. I mean, and very painful. Could be the making of perhaps 1 or 2 individuals. Maybe some people simply decided not to take their jobs seriously, or some people decided to connive against the system. So the truth of the matter is that there are ways you can have one large organization, but with a very efficient system. And there are ways you can have several organizations dormant without efficiency. What matters is efficiency. In the reform of INEC, if unbundling will bring about efficiency, fine, unbundle it. But if you still need other things to do, already you need to inject some other forces into making INEC more efficient, so be it. But it is really due that we sit down thoroughly and look at INEC and make sure that whatever will lead to efficiency, that whatever will bring about making it more efficient than it is today, should be done.
Should some of the functions of this electoral election management body, should some of the functions be taken of it, so that all it has to do would be to concentrate on strictly just, pushing out organizing elections? Because there are questions been raised about the ability of this organization to cope with so many things, sometimes even including the prosecution of electoral offenders.
Well, I think Owei's report has addressed the point now being made, and that is to the effect that there should be voters' registration should be handled by a separate body, separate and distinct from the INEC as it is now. Then there should be what they call Electoral Offences Commission to handle prosecution, offences, and all manners of misdemeanor arising from elections. Because you observed it, over the years, even though the power is with INEC to prosecute, I do not think it has successfully prosecuted up to 2 cases. So far, so good. And registration of voters is always a challenge. And then coming now to the election proper. But I think in all of this, I think it is effective management that matters. It's like when Nigeria operated 3 regions, we recorded a lot of progress based on what I've read. And now we unbundle to 12, we unbundle to 19, we are now unbundled to 36. 37. Exactly. Then, as we are unbundling, the inefficiency is getting higher. The more you unbundle, the higher the inefficiency. Exactly. Look at the achievements of First Republic. Under late Sadauna, may Allah bless his soul. Under Chief Awolowo, may God bless his soul. Under Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, they recorded a whole lot. Now today we have 36. Agitation, inefficiency, irresponsibility in governance, all over the place.
People are asking for more.
They're asking for more. Of course. So if you unbundle INEC, I think I was persuaded by Ways, but from what I'm saying now, if you unbundle it, I think a time will come that some people will say, okay, you have unbundled, you have now it's a special body for registration of voters. Okay, have one for North, have one for West, have one for East. I think what we need to do is to make sure that we organize the body efficiently. The independence is well pronounced. Yeah. And I must say that from the expression of Mr. President, he has given them real independence. For the president with all the security agencies, With all he appointed them not to know that they were going to postpone. For him to wake up by 5 and just realizing that he's giving them the independence. So I think then they have to know, they have to look at the kind of people. For example, logistics is becoming a problem, a challenge in INEC. Perhaps they have to do away with appointing political scientists to head the place. Maybe somebody with knowledge of logistics. I'm not condemning anybody. You may have to look at people with military background. So, I mean, I'm not advocating anything drastic or pro-military. Somebody who has knowledge of logistics, who can sit down and map out strategies, may be well suited to head a place like, because there's a lot of logistic activities going on over there. So I do not think unbundling is really the panacea. It may look so, but I do not think, based on our experience on the number of states, and we are still where we are.
Would you go for unbundling too and say INEC is saddled with too many things to do?
I will agree that INEC is saddled with too many things. And if we can find a way to make it function more efficiently, even if it means unbundling in a limited sense, like he gave example, I will go for it. We even forgot something. As soon as the elections are announced, there will be litigations. And if you see the kind of logistic nightmare that INEC goes through because of the requirement of bringing ballot papers, result sheets, where do you keep them, where are here, and a lot of things. There was a case in particular which I watched, and I was not even in an election petition. Somebody requested for ballot papers from one of the states. I won't say the name of the lawyer. They brought about 15 truckloads of ballot papers. And he was just going around and around the vehicles. So these are the things. There has to be an efficient way of learning this matter, but the burden of registration, registering political parties, fishing out criminals who offend, who contravene the Electoral Act, knowing that in every criminal matter, the burden is on the prosecutor, and he must prove all the essential ingredients of that offense. Attending to the tribunal within a limited time with bundles of applications that experienced lawyers in election petitions will bring is such that INEC may not work. Maybe you can take away the registration of political parties, registration of, or you take away the registration of voters.
Would you not now have a situation where the body that is left with organizing the elections will be set, and the one registering the voters and parties will say, look, we have logistics problems.
I brought that back. I said not the registration of political parties, but the registration of voters. I think in America, what should do? States register?
Oh yes, a lot of things by America. But in America, it's done by the states.
Yes, a lot of things. But like you said, there are 36 states. And even in America, you have contention. Somebody is shortchanging one segment of the society or the other.
The chairman of INEC spoke about the commission having to deal with scores and scores of cases, court injunctions, decisions. Some Nigerians would say even coping with the number of litigations is enough to keep INEC busy 24/7, and they probably might not have enough time. Even right now, there are still cases to do with the elections which are coming up on Saturday. Would that be one reason why you should?
In most of the cases, INEC is a nominal party, not the real
people.
It is, most of these cases stem from what I would call dictatorial tendencies from the parties. That is not allowing the true wishes of the party members to prevail, and then somebody has won the primaries, they are going to use another person. Like, is there in APC, is there in PDP, is there in all the parties. So they end up in court. And necessarily, they must have to join INEC.
All right.
I think in such instances, INEC should just remain neutral, because the Supreme Court has urged them, in matters of this nature, be neutral. And whatever the result of the case is, be bound.
Okay.
So,
but so many issues, judgments are coming up from the lower courts up.
Yeah, if the judgment comes, just be bound by it. The only instances where Mr. A's name has been submitted to INEC,
right,
and INEC now capriciously puts Mr. B's name, then INEC is the main party. Such cases are few. The bulk of the cases turn on the disputes within the parties, arising from dictatorial tendencies by the...
And what INEC does, one of its duties is to supervise primaries by the parties, internal democracy. And in most cases, parties to a litigation do want to rely on the report of INEC. But you see, the person tendering the report is at variance with the report. So in such a situation, INEC will be involved, and then you have this...
Okay, before I come to the politicians, let's stick with, since we have two senior advocates here, would you say that the practitioners, the legal practitioners themselves, in a way, compound the situation?
The politicians compound the situation, not the legal practitioners. Because if I sit down in my office, I cannot go and generate a case. It is based on what is brought to me.
Yes.
If somebody walks to me and they say, oh, in our party, our chairman, I won the primaries, but this is what he has done because somebody took money to him, I have to craft a case for him. So it is the problem stemming from the politicians.
Sometimes could the lawyer say, look, you don't have a case here?
Yeah, to be forthright.
Well, that's... Such cases,
but they would explore all the same.
No, it depends on your integrity as a practitioner. A great number of clients have come and then we have told them, look, this one will not fly. Or some have come after the 14 days time limit prescribed by the Constitution. I will say, no, you have no cause of action, go away. So it all depends on the personal integrity of the lawyer involved. But if you brief the right lawyer, he will advise you no matter how heavy your pocket is.
And I think, to a certain extent, I agree. But a legal practitioner has the duty and responsibility, even when you come within the time limit, to ask you hard questions. These primaries are conducted. There is a space, there are places where they will be conducted, the choice of the political parties. When you have some parties, for instance in Lagos, coming all the way to Abuja to conduct primaries, if you go to a legal practitioner, I mean, he will not maybe hesitate to accept your case. Or when you ask hard questions about the essential thing that will make the case fly, like he said, was there an INEC representative in that place? Have you collected or do you cited the report of INEC and so on? If he doesn't, you now, before you do, you go and get that report because you are entitled to it and look at it. And then, from all indications, the provisions of the constitution of the party and the INEC provisions, you find that it's unnecessary. I think you should be a gentleman enough to say he does not have a case. But like you said, many of the people will come with evidence which if they give to you, you will know that they have a case. Even if you don't do it, they will go to another person and before you know. Sometimes we get a lot of embarrassment when you go to court. You are so sure of certain documents, you tender them, and then some other bunch surface during the trial. So that's why senior lawyers, not even necessarily senior advocates, people who have stayed in the profession, are very, very weary of taking these cases. But it is the culture of not accepting defeat, which is compounding litigations in courts.
Let me just drop a point here. I think one of the ways that INEC could also help the political parties deepen internal democracy is to look at the character and the competence of those they send to come and oversee or supervise party primaries. In most cases, when they come, they are very quiet, and which should be their job. But when they want to write their report, they write their report. In most cases, even the reports that are sent to INEC are not acted upon immediately. Because if an independent INEC person gets to a party primary, these are politicians. They are contending interest. People are vying for various positions. And he's going to observe all that happened. Obviously, a lot of things may have gone wrong in the entire process. It is the duty of this INEC representative to objectively, honestly put a report that this thing did not go the way it ought to go. And INEC will act immediately on that particular report. But in a situation where the person brings a report, they will just sleep down on it. And the crisis in the party will be going because of the non-intervention of INEC person based on the report that has been pushed across.
So in looking at this, would you say there's a need to take away some of those functions from INEC?
I don't think we should take away the function from INEC. But basically to strengthen them to do it better.
All right.
Yes, about the legal avenue.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is that for a developing democracy like ours, the legal avenue brings a lot of succor, and that is why we have a peaceful democracy. Okay. We have not gotten to a point where people do what President Jonathan did, that exceptional, gesture of calling, his rival even before the last, before the final compilation of election results. We haven't gotten to that point. But you see, we have to encourage people to go to court because the litigation is an integral part of the electoral system. Because if they don't go to court, they will fight.
Okay. Now, the build-up to the elections, the campaigns, and even the conduct of the elections themselves always threw up certain challenges. And here, we're talking about electoral offenses. The president quite recently has come down real hard and has issued a stern warning. And this has also generated lots and lots of controversy in the system. Let me begin this with the lawyers. And so many opinions have been given about what the president said, if he could actually read what they call a riot act and give marching orders to security agencies to clamp down on him. What do you think about that?
Well, I think my understanding, the president was speaking within a context, and that was coming from the background of the disappointment which came with postponement of the election and the fact that getting signals that some politicians were trying to be funny. And he's come out to say that anybody who tries to snatch ballot box and run away with it will be taking a dangerous risk because the security agencies have been mandated to act decisively. My taking of what you have said is this, that if you take ballot box and you are running and they are pursuing you and you think you are smart, you are endangering your life because you may be shot. Because even where a criminal is noticed and is trying to escape, the law allows some application of force to apprehend him. More so, you're talking of ballot box containing ballot papers. I think A rough situation deserves a rough treatment. What the president is saying is like issuing a stern warning. Do not mess up with the electoral process. And he has gone ahead as the statesman. He said, I've gone round. I'm comfortable. Nigerians vote for anybody of your choice. He did not even limit it to say that you must vote for APC. I've never seen any presidential candidate in this country who has come out to say that. He said, vote for, he's repeated it in Ogun State. He said so in Igbo State. He said several states that, look, vote for, but what he's saying is that if you try to be funny, meaning that even if you are APC and you people don't want you, and you take ballot box and you are trying to run, if the security agencies pursue you and you are running, if they try to obstruct you through any means and you endanger your life, you are your own. That is my take.
Okay, let's try the phones now. We have a caller from Abuja. Kike calling in from Abuja. Hello.
Good evening, Cyril.
Good evening.
And your guests. I just have an observation. Earlier today, I had heard the chairman of INEC announce activities running up to the election with timelines, which hitherto I thought were secret or confidential information. So I'm wondering if anyone thought along the same lines, or I thought that maybe under pressure, INEC is being caused to make blunders and gaps. And are we then going to be exposed to rigging and other things like that? I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, you heard the caller. He said she listened to the INEC chairman, and it would seem as if he's now disclosing certain things which otherwise should have been confidential. But the INEC chairman did say that from now until the elections hold, there will be daily briefings about, you know, what they have done, the level they have achieved in the distribution. Does that really amount to disclosing confidential matters?
I think what the INEC chairman has been doing is what they call confidence building.
Right.
To reclaim the confidence. Because people were disappointed and you need to win them back. So to that extent, I think what the INEC chairman is saying so far is another. He needs to reclaim the confidence of Nigerians.
Also, in view of the fact that the postponement has created tension in the system, regular briefing eases the tension.
That is it.
Basically, it's transparency at play.
Okay.
He wants to be seen to be sincere. He wants to be seen to be transparent. He wants to collectively engage the people and make sure that they have a lot of confidence in the system. That's exactly what he's doing. Right. Nothing will be under the table.
Okay. Now back to the issue of electoral offences, those who are trying to foment trouble, and the hard stance of the president. Yes, it's not limited to any one particular party or group. It was a general warning the president put out, but it's been open to all kinds of interpretations. What's your take on that?
Well, people will interpret, like I said, especially politicians. I'm not accusing you. We want to interpret anything, especially coming from the president. This briefing that Kike talked about really showed how independent INEC is, because it will be the one to determine what is the secret things that they ought not to release and what are those things that they should release. But what happened is that in every situation in modern states, police have the power to apprehend an offender. And if he escapes or try to block that arrest, they have the power to use reasonable force. A reasonable force can mean, in these days, firing at another person. The president is the chief security officer of this country. He is saying, you cannot do this kind of offenses. It may be punishable by 24 months imprisonment, fine, 3 months, 4 months. But the implication of snatching a ballot paper and running away, and then the security agency is asking you, stop, stop, and you refuse to stop. Do people expect, do they honestly expect the security agents to allow that person to go away with that ballot paper? And they say that this is not democracy, that you don't do this in America. How many reports have you in your news, NTA 89, read about a police officer shooting a toddler because he had a toy gun, and he said that I was apprehensive of my life? If a person snatches a ballot paper and runs away and he is asked to stop, how do you know that he will not? And in any case, people are forgetting that the policemen who are going to be in the polling station do not have firearms. It was specifically, that was the instructions of the Acting Inspector General of Police. But there may be other security agencies with guns and so on. So the president is telling you, as the chief security officer, don't endanger your life. And then, it is not a sound advice. It's just like the advice when people, the imams and the pastors, tell us parents that don't allow the politicians to use your kid to foment violence because they give them drugs and other intoxicant matters while they keep their children in their houses. The president is now saying that I am determined.
Okay. All right, let's go to the phones, and Umar Anachi calling in, and probably would be our last caller. Umar, just in time to catch this program. Hello, go right ahead.
Yes, good evening, Siro. I'm Umar Anachi calling from Birmingham, Kebbi. Postponement of election is unfortunate. Honestly, it came as a surprise to many Nigerians. And what baffled me most is why the commission have to wait until the dying minute, until few hours before the commencement of the election. There is need for INEC to know that few days before election, they would have done it in such a way that few days before election, it's a projection. You have to project things. This logistic problem, it keep on occurring, and it will not. It does not occur within a day. It's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, just like that. So INEC should be able to know at least this thing can be done or it cannot be done at least 3 days before the election. Actually, it has become a surprise thing to us. And one thing is that it is because there is no sanctions. Everybody will feel like doing whatever he wants to do. And nobody sanctions him. There is no sanction. Like what Mr. President said, there should be an investigative body to investigate this matter. And anybody found wanting should be brought to book. May God continue to bless our country. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, yes, speaking about the warning to those who might want to cause trouble during the elections, snatch a ballot box, or engage in all those practices likely to disrupt the conduct of the elections.
Well, I listened to the president's speech, and I took up the ending where he said that anybody that does that will be doing that at the risk of his life. That was the ending of that statement. I think Nigerians are very, I wouldn't say they begin to interpret that particular statement in various light, but it's a deep heart of a statesman that wants to ensure that things go the right way. That's my basic assessment of it. Of course, everybody knows the camp where we belong to, but we need to be very, very candid about it. Trying to take out the will of the people in this kind of momentous situation is a very bad one. The global community is focused on Nigeria. I don't know, but the thing is basically people are agitated. For instance, my political party, we have very large number of Nigerians abroad that are keen watching this. A larger chunk of our membership is drawn from abroad, and it's like this is the time. And so anybody that is playing to snatch the ballot box is a very high criminal offense. That person should be dealt with. It's not going to be business as usual. So the president is right in the context, and he should be seen in that way. Every person that will try or attempt to snatch the ballot box should be brought to books. Maybe in the way he put it, I would prefer that using the word, the person should be brought to books. And when we say somebody should be brought to the books, we understand what it means. It becomes more simple for them to understand.
Okay,
yes,
what's your take
to buttress what you said and to add more. The truth of the matter is that when you kill an individual, when you commit a murder, you kill an individual. But when you snatch a ballot box, you kill a nation. So what I'm trying to say here is, you see, we have a system where, over the years, in our electoral experience and history, political thugs, now with sophisticated weapons, cut away boxes, cut away electoral materials. And when they come face to face with agents of the law, they shoot at them. What do you expect the agent of the law to do? They will shoot back. And in that event, of course, there could be death. So the president's warning, like my colleague said, is long overdue. And what we should take out of this is first, it is not to begin to interpret what the president said, but to ensure that nobody does it. That is the most important thing. One. Secondly, the president too is saying, by saying this, the president is sending a message to the entire nation and the whole world that he's not sponsoring any political thuggery as a contestant in this election. Because the order does not limit to any part of the country or any political party. Very good. So even members of his own party. So for me, it's something we should be taking seriously. And instead of condemning the president, I would rather commend him for finding the courage, to speak so hard against a terrible crime.
All right, now let's stay with the politicians as we prepare to wind down this program. And the main business here with these elections is to convince the electorate to, drop their ballots for you. And so what is it that you're going to say to your supporters who will be involved in this whole process, in the way they conduct themselves before, during, and after voting?
Very good. Thank you for the opportunity. My supporters, members of the Movement for the Restoration and Defense of Democracy, should conduct themselves in accordance with the law, the Electoral Act, and the INEC guidelines on elections. Go in there, vote all our candidates, except for the presidential, which I have been, it was decided by the national organs of my party that I stepped down for the president. For the presidential elections, all our supporters should vote for the president and conduct themselves properly. Do not take to thuggery. INEC has provided enough, from the guidelines. It is very civil and well organized. Go by that and let the people's will prevail.
All right, well, it's, You're free to campaign.
Thank you.
Okay. Since we started, we said we were taking back Nigeria, and that's why we are still sticking on. I asked our very large number of supporters across the country, and those who will be coming into the country as well, to exercise themselves in such a matured manner. Let them be very, very civil. Let them conduct themselves appropriately as good citizens. Let them reflect the spirit, the ideological leaning and philosophical binding of AAC, African Action Congress, and let them vote for Moyele Sowore, which is the youngest presidential candidate.
Okay. For the senior lawyers who are here, the question would be a little bit different in this case. What are those things Nigeria should now focus on in order to better the system, the whole electoral system, on the one hand? And of course, there's a popular joke in town that the lawyers just love this period. Well, I don't want to hazard a guess why they do.
Well, even amongst other jokes, but there are some senior lawyers that after the election petitions, they will go and rest for another 4 years. So you are not saying this is the thing that we say to ourselves. But I think the main thing is for this election, it's almost too late for anybody to say do this now or do that. All I want as a Nigerian, not necessarily as a legal practitioner, is to appeal to Nigerians to say that we have been having elections since 1999. There have never been any interruption. We have seen the bad side of thuggery. We have seen these ballot papers. We have seen a situation whereby a governor will be sworn in just 3 months before the end of the tenure. And we have seen legislators in the same vein. It did not help us because there was no representation. The person who was declared until he is unseated is there doing everything. Maybe deep inside him, he knows that this seat will go away. So let's do something that we as people will be proud of. Live and let live. If you are for any political party, go and vote for that party or candidate, as Mr. President said, but you are under duty. It's your duty. You are right to vote for candidate A. Stops where you impede somebody to vote for candidate B. So let's be proud. Let's do our country proud. Let us be able to say, yes, we have conducted ourselves. Now that the system, the modern time of choosing leaders, is not like during our forefathers, it's through ballot box. Let's do it. And whatever we vote for, maybe we have the chance to kick him out of the office. But it should never be a time for killing, for crimes, for all kinds of things you hear connected with the election. I think this is the situation, and then after the elections, as Mr. President promised, or whoever comes in as the president, must really look at the issue of INEC. How will it improve its efficiency? How will it improve its management skills and so on? Even if it means unbundling some of its duties, where reasonable, let's do so. But we cannot be having this tension every 4 years during the election. We can't as a nation.
All right, so let's come to you with the same thing.
Thank you very much. In addition to what Alhaji Umar has said, I believe one of the ways we can really get out of this logjam is to quickly move away from presidential system of government to parliamentary system. Because the humongous amount of money going into electioneering and what have you, which dovetails into bad governance, is the result of what we are seeing now. For example, INEC budget is over 200 billion for this election. This money is enough to run about 5 African nations, and they will be kicking very well. So why? Why? Do we really need that? But if we have a parliamentary system where we're only going to have 2 elections, state assemblies and then national assembly, all these governors or presidential and what have you, which is the root cause of most of these problems, especially the governors. Because today in Nigeria, whether or not we like it, for a gubernatorial seat, the kind of money they mention, I don't know, being spent, leading to all sorts of things. We witnessed what happened in Ogun State, simply because they brought out somebody's hand, they were almost turning the president. In Imo, we saw it all over like that. And most of these litigations being generated, they are rising from gubernatorial seats. So, to stem this, I think we have to go back to what our forefathers gave us, which was unfortunately truncated by impatient military officers in 1966. If we go back to parliamentary system, most of these things, I believe, will drop.
Well, the presidential system works in other places, doesn't it?
Well, I do not think we have the temperament to run it. And having regard to our diverse nature, I mean, there is the need for us to, I'm not saying presidential system of government is bad, but it's the way we are today. What is going into governance is too much. And that is why we are, in terms of infrastructure, very, very low. Look at the amount of money being used to run the states. Look at the amount of money going to governors' offices. If you have a premier in a state, and he's also a member of the parliament, how much of money will he be spending? The security vote around the governor, the retinue of aides, the retinue of people following him all over the place.
The commissioners.
I mean, you begin to wonder, what are we running? What kind of show is all this? There's the need for us to tinker with what we're practicing. Otherwise, we will be on the barber chair for many years to come.
All right. And it is on that note we'll have to leave this conversation. As I always say, no one program can take care of all the issues at stake. But tonight, we'd like to say a big thank you to all our guests. Njuma Mohammed, presidential candidate, Movement for the Restoration and Defense of Democracy, is also the chair of that party. We thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let us also give a huge thanks to Dr. Leonard Nzewa, who is National Secretary, African Action Congress. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And for former Attorney General Kano State, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ali Umar, thank you for doing us. Let me also say a big thank you to the second Senior Advocate of Nigeria who's on this program tonight. It's not all the time we have very senior lawyers like this share their thoughts with us. We thank you for being here, Ahmed Raji, a former resident electoral commissioner with INEC. So you've got, you've also felt the heat at one point in time.
Oh, yes.
I'm just curious, how does it feel now being on the other side?
Well, I thank my God because it was a very nasty experience, especially with the gubernatorial. If it had been parliamentary elections only, the tension would have been scattered all over the states in a minimal way. But gubernatorial, the whole thing was like they're bringing bombs. It was there. Bombs, concentration of bombs in one place, which we do not need as a nation. And that is why movement, no motion for Nigeria.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right. And also to you out there, we say thank you for being part of this program. Well, I know that the last time we were on this forum, that was last Tuesday, I stepped up and said to you that by the time we meet again, so many things would have been decided. Well, I'd like to stick my neck out again tonight and say, yes, INEC has got it all right this time, and the elections will go on Saturday. And so I'd still hazard that and say, by next Tuesday when we meet again, there will be something to report about the elections. So thank you for being part of it. I'll see you again next week. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.